Joe Concha is here. He's a Fox News contributor, author of Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. Joe, great to have you back with us, sir.
Thank you, Vince. Actually, I have a book coming out in a couple months called The Greatest Comeback Ever, Inside Trump's Big, Beautiful Campaign, Unburdened by What Has Been. So we're just turning them out, baby.
I love that. In fact, I love when you release books because I just love yelling the titles out loud as we introduce you. It's a lot of fun. So, Jan Crawford, CBS reporter, I felt like this was a very revealing statement that she made. And not just because in some ways she was stating the obvious that the media should have been covering Biden's cognitive decline, but also that she seems very convinced that the media could have changed the result of the election if they only told us.
Oh, sit down, Jan Crawford. I don't want to hear this anymore, Vince. Quite frankly, we heard it from Chris Cillizza, right, maybe last week. Well, as a reporter and a journalist, if I'd done more digging, I could have got to the bottom of what was really going on with Joe Biden's brain. No, all you have to do is turn on a TV, pal. If you have eyes, ears, and basic sober sanity, you'll see that he was so far gone for years.
Yes.
My first book I wrote in 2021 saying he has no business being president, let alone a golf starter, at your local county course.
Right,
so
and she says
we should have reported it. Oh, shut up!
Yeah, and she says it in this clip. She says it in this clip, Joe. She said it's obvious, she says, declares it right up front. She says it's undeniable that he has cognitive decline. And she's right. In other words, CBS didn't have to tell us that at all. They didn't have to make a point of it. Like if you turn on the television and you see the president has a peg leg, you don't need CBS to tell you that he's got a peg leg. We all see him clunking around. And this guy doesn't have the mental capacity to do the job. We all can tell. But Jan Crawford seems to be convinced that if they had only said something on CBS or ABC or any of the other establishment media outlets, then maybe Donald Trump wouldn't have won the election. What does that tell you?
That tells you that they are delusional. I heard that word used during that clip, but it's delusional. I don't care who the Democrats would have put up. The brand is broken. It's not so much the people that they run. Whoever ran as a Democratic nominee would still have to own all the DEI stuff and then playing against women in sports and obviously sky-high inflation and an open border, all of those things. Donald Trump was on the right side of the issues. That's why he won. And I know Kamala Harris was a profoundly horrible candidate, and Joe Biden's brain turned to applesauce during that debate. But let's face it, it did well before that, and everybody acted shocked when it actually happened. I don't think Democrats were winning in this cycle. People wanted change, and the brand is broken.
You know, I think it was Ben Carson who I first heard say it during the 2024 election, but that this election, the 2024 election, would be a test of the media's ability to rig it again. And I thought it was a smart point, and I watched for that throughout the election. And my sense of it, Joe, is that the establishment press does not have that power anymore. That and Jan Crawford is talking about a power that they used to have but do not now. Do you agree?
Absolutely, because you look at the numbers, Vince. For example, ABC News, right, which is run by a gal named Dana Walden. She runs the news division over there. She happens to be best friends with Kamala Harris. Literally introduced Kamala Harris to Doug Emhoff 10 years ago. They lived right next door to each other, basically, in Brentwood, California. Right now, she runs ABC News. So when Kamala becomes the nominee, ABC News does 100 stories on Kamala Harris, the first 100 anyway. And the Media Research Center found that all 100 were positive. Baghdad Bob would watch this and say, hey, aren't you guys laying it on a little thick? So despite all that pushing, and during that ridiculous debate with David Muir and Lindsey Davis, where they fact-checked Donald Trump 5 times and Kamala Harris 0 times, despite the fact that CBS tried to fact-check J.D. Vance when he actually was correctly fact-checking them and then they cut off his mic, despite all these headwinds that Donald Trump had to go against from the media, it didn't matter because legacy media doesn't have that influence, to your point, anymore. And podcasts like Joe Rogan's and radio shows like yours and Fox News, which actually has been telling the truth about Joe Biden for years, that's where the power is now.
Yeah, I've noticed, by the way, Fox's ratings are growing. And meanwhile, MSNBC and CNN are still on the decline. And again, if you're just basing it on the product, that makes total sense. To me. There was a big headline in the middle of this month that ABC News has agreed to settle a defamation lawsuit with President Trump because George Stephanopoulos brazenly lied about Donald Trump in his legal cases on the air. And he did it multiple times in the course of a single interview with Nancy Mace. ABC paid $15 million to settle that lawsuit. Since then, I've seen a bunch of lefty journalists who are angry about this. They think that this is a betrayal by ABC that they should have three musketeer style kind of linked arms, and we're not gonna we're one for all. We all got to fight together against Trump. What do you make of this? That President Trump is succeeding in lawsuits against people who lie about him?
Yeah, lefty journalists like Brian Stelter, who apparently is an objective media critic, he was especially upset about this. But here's the bottom line. If George Stephanopoulos, during that interview with Nancy Mace, can say that Donald Trump was convicted of rape, not one, not three, 10 times he said this, I'm sorry, there needs to be accountability. And that is a nice warning to the media now that you just can't make up stuff anymore and lie about people and get away with it. I hope defamation lawsuits continue when it is justified. It absolutely was here. And all we hear is, well, Donald Trump's just trying to bully the media. No, he just wants the truth. That's all. Just report on him objectively. He doesn't mind tough reporting. Just make sure it's truthful. And boy, we got a long way away from that.
What do you think Donald Trump should do as a media strategy now that he's got a second chance at the White House? In the first term, he apparently spent a lot of time calling Maggie Haberman at the New York Times. He'd speak to a lot of the legacy news outlets. He clearly kind of enjoys doing that, mixing it up, especially with people who dislike him. But as far as media strategy goes, do you think he should do it again the same way he did it in round one?
No, not so much. I think when he wants to talk to the press, he should do press conferences. We already see it. He did one just last week at Mar-a-Lago and went for more than an hour. And oh my God, he actually didn't need to call on a list of hand-picked reporters handed to him beforehand. So that was refreshing. I'd like to see Caroline Leavitt, who's the White House press secretary. I'd like to see different reporters in that White House briefing room 4 days a week. And what I mean by that, Vince, is that one day have the White House, the standard White House correspondents in there. Day two, I just want business reporters in there asking questions about the economy. Day three, then I want only foreign policy reporters in there asking about that. And then day four, open it up to bloggers. They don't even have to go to Washington. You could pipe them in through the technology that we have now. And let's hear some different people asking questions because, again, I don't want to tout Fox too much, but, outside of Peter Doocy, Jackie Heinrich, and Phil Wegman is actually very good over at Real Clear Politics. No one really asked any tough questions of the White House press secretary. I'd like to see some different faces in there now. Oh, and Caitlin Collins is going back. That's good. I want to see Acosta back in there, too. He runs away when there's Democratic presidents, but let's see Jim Acosta back in the press room just so we can make I shouldn't use that word, a jackass of himself.
He'll handle that, and then we'll report on that. And as a guy who has a reporter in that briefing room, Reagan Reese covers it for the Daily Caller. She goes with some frequency, but this White House refuses to call on a Reagan Reese or the type of people who would ask these good questions that we're all looking for. Because they know it's only the TV guys by and large. Philip Wegman has done a good job. He's kind of the exception there, but mostly just the TV guys. That's really where you get an opportunity to get a question in. I'd say as far as as we're just workshopping this idea, I do think rotating the people in that briefing room is a good idea. If it's thematically rotated or just rotate news outlets through, because, right now it's being dominated by people who really don't have the interests of the American people at heart. They're asking all sorts of very navel-gazing questions that have a lot more to do with impressing their fellow colleagues in that room than they do with actually informing the public. And that desperately needs to be fixed.
And Vince, that's the whole problem with media. It's all about getting likes and retweets from Maggie Haberman or, I don't know, getting an invite to Stephen Colbert. It used to be, hey, I want to win a Pulitzer. I want to win an Emmy. I want to win some sort of prestigious award like a Polk. And now it's just like, I'm going on Colbert. It's like, that's the goal. It's insane. But look, the trust in media now, it's basically on the same level as gas station sushi, and you don't want to be on the same level as media trust as far as gas station sushi is concerned. I had it a couple of days ago and it didn't go well.
Yeah, and the truth is I trust it more than I trust the media. So, I take that for what it's worth. Thank you very much. Joe Concha, always so good to talk to you. Please have an excellent New Year, sir.
Happy New Year, Vince. Take care.